Hey Stitchy friends, today I'm going to show you how you can make your own little monogram ornament. These are so much fun. They're really simple to make. You can honestly make a couple in just one day. So you're going to need to download this pattern and print it out on some sticky Fabri-Solvy. Then you'll need one of my Petite Pastel hoops, as well as some fabric. I always like to use 2 layers. You can use whatever kind of fabric you like. Just a good cotton blend is always nice. Then I'm going to take the outside layer of my hoop and place the inner layer of my hoop on the bottom of my fabric and just secure it. Now I'm going to peel off the top layer of my Fabri-Solvy and stick it onto my fabric. It is a little bit forgiving if you need to reposition it to the fabric, but if you do it more than once, then it's going to lose its adhesive part a little bit. So I'm just going to trim off the excess fabric here. I like to use pinking shears because it'll stop your fabric from fraying, which is really nice when you're stitching. Okay, now we're ready to start. So I've got 3 strands of this light green thread and I'm using the size 5 embroidery needle. And if you got the kit, it's that middle one right here. You can also use a size 10 embroidery needle if you want to use only 2 strands of embroidery thread. Totally up to you. If you use 3 strands, it will make the process a little bit quicker. So now I'm going in with a satin stitch, which is gonna take forever. And I know a lot of you hate this satin stitch, but I think it adds such a beautiful shine to this ornament and it's totally worth it. Plus these letters are so small, so it's really not going to take you that long. So I will just show you some of the satin stitching. I'll speed up some of this because it's very repetitive, but I'll come back to the curve of the J just so you can see how I do the satin stitching there, just because it's a little bit different. So now on the curve, I'm going to skip like a little section of where I would normally come in with the satin stitch, just so I can make sure and get the angles right, because I'm going to curve it upward the top of the J. So just like that. Okay, now that our letter is filled in, here comes the fun part. So we're going to grab 6 strands of our red thread with that size 22 chenille needle, and we're going to outline our shape with a backstitch. A key part of this is making your backstitching all about the same length. If you have some that are shorter or some that are way longer, it will make the whipped backstitch look a little bit different. So now I've finished my outline. I'm just going to tie off the thread with a knot at the back and trim off the excess thread and take it off my needle, and I'm going to be using the same needle for this next part. So this is called a whipped backstitch, and I'm going to use white thread, so I've got 6 strands of it, and we're going to just be stitching on the surface of our fabric. So we're going underneath each little backstitch we added from our previous step, and you want to make sure to come in on the same side each time. So what you're doing is wrapping the thread around the back stitching, and that's what gives us this really fun candy cane effect. And this stitch is so simple, but it has such a huge wow factor because look at that, it's just so cute, and it adds so much character to this little design. So now I'm just gonna knot off the thread at the back, trim off the excess again, And now with that smallest needle, so the size 10 embroidery needle, I'm only using one strand of my black thread, which is number 310. And I only use DMC thread, by the way. It's the only one I suggest. There's a lot of other cheaper brands out there, but trust me, it is definitely worth it to get DMC. So I'm also using a backstitch, and honestly, this part will probably take you the longest just because there's so many little curves and tangles in the strand that we're going to attach our lights to. And this is my least favorite part just because it takes forever, but gonna be worth it. And I'm so sorry, I didn't realize until I was editing this video that I should have moved my camera down because all my stitching is done at the bottom of this video, so I do apologize for that. Okay, now that we've got all our stitches in place, we're going to add these fun little beads. I love them so much. So I'm going to use my size 5 embroidery needle, and you can use 2 or 3 strands of some white thread. You could also use your black thread. I just wanted to use white thread so it would blend in better with the fabric. And I've got a link in the description of this video to these beads if you want to grab some. So I'm just gonna add this thread to my needle and knot one end of the thread. Then I'm going to bring it up through the fabric, and I'm just going to grab my beads here and grab just one little bead, slide it onto my needle. And then slide the bead all the way down to the fabric here. So to secure it to the fabric, I'm going to move the stitch over just a little bit so that way the bead will lay flat on the fabric, which will make it look a little bit more like a Christmas light. And I'll just repeat that. So just going to be adding the lights wherever I feel like they should go around the cording here. And there's not like specific parts that are added to the pattern where you should put them. So just put them wherever you feel like, however many you want to add. It's totally up to you. Once you've added enough beads, you can go ahead and knot your thread off at the back of the fabric, and you might want to do it a couple times just to make sure they're all secure to the top of the fabric. And then you can trim off the excess thread, and then we'll bring it over to the sink. And it's a little bit hard to see since I'm using white fabric, but if you run it under warm water, it's going to dissolve that Fabri-Solvy that we stuck to the fabric, which helped us transfer our pattern. And if you're using my Petite Pastel TAUT hoops, you can just leave it in the hoop while you're washing off the Fabri-Solvy. If it bothers you, you can take it out. It's just going to be one more step for you, so I just left it in. Then you'll want to put it in a sunny spot somewhere, let it dry completely before you move on to the next step. Once it's all dry, we're going to grab a small piece of felt and trace the inside one of our Petite Pastel hoops. I'm using my Heat-Erasable pen for this just so I can erase any marks after I cut out the piece of felt here. Okay, we're just going to set the felt aside, and we're going to grab some extra thread, and now we're going to cinch up the extra fabric back of our hoop here. Now I'm just going to tie it off really quickly. Now I'm just going to grab another 6 strands of thread. with my size 22 chenille needle, and I'll be using a blanket stitch to attach this little piece of felt to the back of our hoop to hide the stitching and just make everything nice and neat. I'm bringing my needle underneath the fabric, pulling it through. Then I'll grab my piece of felt and bring my needle through that as well. Then I'll just bring it underneath this loop here so I can begin my blanket stitching. So each stitch, we're first going to come through that excess piece of fabric, and then through the piece of felt. And then we'll pull our needle, not all the way through, we're just going to leave a little loop on the top like this. And we'll bring our needle through that loop and pull it taut. And then you'll just repeat that process. So coming through the fabric, then the felt, pulling the needle through, leaving that little loop on the top, and then coming up through the loop. And that's a blanket stitch. So I will meet you at the end here and I'll show you how to finish this off. Now we've finished our blanket stitch. I'm just going to knot this off. And I'll trim off the rest of my thread. And that's Frankie's little hand at the bottom of this video, you can see. Now I'm just gonna grab a little piece of this velvet ribbon, add some more character, and this is just going to allow me to hang it up somewhere. It would have been cuter to tie a bow, but I didn't trim enough ribbon for that, so I just left it like this. But that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. These are so fun and make such special gifts for the holidays. If you try it out, please let me know. You can download this pattern for $4. I would really appreciate it. I put a lot of work into these and I know you're going to love it. Thank you so much for joining me. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I'll see you again next time.